So first of all, I want to address every person who may feel very disappointed in me for coming out in this vulnerable state to share my story before the world. To these persons, I want to hope that somewhere or somehow along the line in this video, you get to find reasons, genuine reasons, not to be disappointed. I'm saying this because I know that there are these close individuals who are placed. There are these persons who place premium kind of respect on my being, on my personality, and whom I respect also. Um, Individuals who feel I cannot act in certain ways in public or that I cannot at any point act out of character. I respect you and I need you to please kindly understand that I'm a human being, although an adult, a human being with blood and other fluid running in my veins, which means I'm subject to emotional breakdown. And that is a point where I am at the moment. That is where I am. Because the truth is, I'm tired, I'm vulnerable, I feel helpless at the moment, and I feel like I cannot continue to live in pretense. So, which is why I decided to come out this way in a very vulnerable state without holding back to to call for help. This is an outcry for help. In the last 16 years, I have lived in pretense, even though I've always presented myself, I've carried myself, my body, my personality as someone who cannot at any point act out of character. That is because I've always lived in the fear of what the public will say, because I have feared disappointing the people who care so much about me. Starboy, especially Starboy. I know you might want to be like, why is Robin doing this? Why he didn't speak with me? Why has he done this and all? To Starboy, you in particular, I want to say, I want to apologize especially. And again, like everyone else, I hope you're going to find genuine reasons along the line to understand why I am doing this. As a matter of fact, I decided to summon up courage to do this because I feel my mental health is in jeopardy. My mental health is being messed up. I really can't think straight anymore, and I feel it's about time I told my story without holding back. So this is my moment of truth. Apologies to everyone that might feel disappointed. So let me start with how I started to be an English language teacher. The journey started back in 2010. I really can't remember the exact date, but no, it was in July, the day after my NECO examination. So I was retained to be a student teacher. I mean, to be a teacher, a class teacher in Basic 5, which was the highest class at the time in the primary, at the primary level in Faith group of schools. You know, I attended Faith Latin Primary School and then Faith Comprehensive College in Grammatical State. So did I finished my last O-level examination, NECO examination, where I was the first, and NECO followed after. So when I finished NECO examination, the day after, late SO Oyekule, Olusegun Oyekule, gave me ties, gave me shirts, and then it led me to Basic 5, where I became a class teacher. So that was my first time. That was how my journey as a teacher began. So because I had to teach every subject at the time. Thereafter, in 2010, I proceeded to Obafemi Awolowo University in Washington State. That's Africa's best university of all time, Africa's most beautiful campus also. So I proceeded to OAU to study the English language, and after graduation, during and after graduation, up until this time, I've been an English language teacher. However, there is this particular aspect of the English language that is messed up with my mental health. And I feel this is the time to come out and cry publicly to every English language teacher, every English expert who can help me regain my health. Because you need to make it make sense. Why, in 16 years of teaching the English language, I haven't found the right way to teach one particular concept. And this concept is one that I personally would tag as being the most confusing aspect of the English language. It's an aspect that most English language teachers have problem with, but they all pretend to understand. I've read a number of books, I've read a number of persons, such as Delia Shade, they said Delia Shade, that almost every English language teacher in Nigeria respects. And I'm sure that Delia Shade is respected all around the world. But make it make sense. Why even my model, my role model, Delia Shade, and lecturers in the university, English language teachers alike, will still not be able to explain convincingly this part of their English language, which is why I feel we need to come out as English language teachers and find a solution to this part of their English language, messing with people's mental health. And I am one, there's no point pretending my mental health is. Honestly, I feel bad. I feel either emotional right now. Very emotional right now. Let's put this on the board. Make it make sense. How would you say off of the crowd? Off of the crowd. Dash. Moving away. Just moving away. And you say is. And then you say off of the crowd. Dash. Wearing red. Wearing red. Red. And your answer will be word. Just kind of make it make sense. How would you say half of the crowd is moving away, and then at the same time you say half of the crowd are wearing red? This is messing up with my brain. It's messing up with my brain. Make it make sense. How do I explain it? You noticed in the last video that I made on Concord of fractions and percentages, my focus in that class, in that lesson, was on count nouns and uncount nouns. But this one is still the concord of fractions and percentages. This aspect of the English language is crazy. It's driving me crazy, guys. And that is why I'm coming out here in this vulnerable state, not holding back, not just an English language teacher, I mean an English language expert. And you have answers to this. Kindly let's converge in the comment and explain to me the best way to explain this concept of concord of fractions and percentages with focus on collective nouns. Collective nouns. Because right here, crowd is a collective noun. Crowd here is a collective noun. When you call something a rule, you call something a rule in the English language. A rule should be able to rule in every context, should be able to provide answers in every context. But when a rule begins to have a subjective interpretation, I think the rule is not subject to being considered a rule. And that is the case with the concord of fractions and percentages with focus on collective nouns. So let's break it down. In the last 16 years up to this time, what I've read in books is that a collective noun is a group of items that functions as a unit. Of course, I know you know that a collective noun, a collective noun is a group of items functioning as one unit. Now, here is where it gets interesting. It said that a collective noun, okay, first of all, let's talk about examples of collective nouns. You know, we have class, the word class is a collective noun. The word staff is a collective noun. The word committee is a collective noun. The word congregation is a collective noun. The word crowd, audience, All of these are examples of collective nouns. And then it said that a collective noun can be singular and it can be plural, all depending on the subjective interpretation of the person talking about them or the person using them in expressions. I think there again. A collective noun can be described, can be interpreted, can be interpreted, can be interpreted as singular, and it may be interpreted as plural, all depending on the context of the interpretation, all depending on the context of usage. Now, when we talk about the concord fractions and percentage, remember the structure that we have the percentage, you have of, you have the noun. Now, the noun in this case is a collective noun, okay? And after that, you have the verb. The rule is pretty clear. The rule says that when you have a collective noun being used, and then the collective noun talks about the unit functioning together, the verb should be singular. And that when there are individual items in a noun, in a collective noun, the individual items that make up the group are being talked about, then you have a plural verb. But that rule doesn't seem to apply to every situation. Okay, let's look at this. Let's forget about this for now. We're coming back to this later. But look at this example. If I say my team is a collective noun. My team, dash, 10 years today. Is 10 years old today. Now, my team, dash, 10 years old today. And then we have two options, is, be, and then we have are. Now, my team, dash, 10 years old today. The word team is a collective noun. And the rule guiding collective nouns someplace says that when you have collective nouns being used in sentences, if the collective noun is treated as a unit, as an institution, then you have a singular verb. But when you're talking about the individual person that make up the unit, that make up the group, then you have a plural verb. Now, in this case, my team, dash, 10 years old today. We aren't talking about the persons that make up the team. We aren't talking about the person that make up the club. We aren't talking about the people that make up the institution. Rather, this sentence is talking about the founding of the club, the founding of the team. How old is this unit? And so, because we're talking about the institution, we're talking about the unit. As a collective institution, the verb is singular, which is why this is correct. My team is 10 years old today. Correct. Right? Good. Now, this rule now says that the other side of this rule simply says that when you have a collective noun being used in a sentence and the focus, the interpretation is on the person that make up the group. The person that make up the group. If the focus is on the people that make up the group, then your answer will be plural. So let's look at this. Let's look at this example. My team, dash traveling today. Now, look at it. My team, dash traveling today. Do you know that the right answer? Okay, before I start saying, do you know the right answer is? Now, look at it. My team, dash traveling today. According to the rule, when a collective noun is talking about, is referring to their institution or the unit of people, then you have a singular verb. But when you're talking about the person that make up the group, right? That you have a plural verb. So look at this. My team, dash traveling today. I'm gonna ask you, do you think that this sentence is talking about their institution as traveling today, or this sentence is talking about the people that make up this institution as traveling today? Which of these two interpretations do you think will apply here? Because mind you, the right answer, according to this rule, according to most English language teachers, is that what you have here would be my team is traveling today. That is what everybody, all the videos that I've watched, all the books that I've said, this is what I keep talking about. That my team is traveling today. That is because the interpretation I always give is okay, the team here is the unit, the institution, that we're putting all of them collectively together, and so that's why it's this. Whereas there are other authors who have this rule, especially Dele Ashade. Dele Ashade will say that when the collective noun performs an action, the verb will be plural. That is what Dila Shadi says. And that's my personal mentor when it comes to English grammar explanation. Dila Shadi will say that when a collective noun performs an action, the verb has to be plural. But when a collective noun doesn't perform an action, the verb should be singular. Here, an action is being performed. If I have to go with Dila Shadi, an action is being performed in this sentence. My team dash traveling. My team are traveling. That should be the right thing. So based on Dila Shadi, based on what the rule says, that when an action is being performed by a collective noun, then your verb should be plural. But in this case, there's a subjective interpretation also that says that when you're talking about the unit together without any differences, then you have a singular verb. So most English teachers here will say it's as the right answer, but another part of the rule also makes this correct as are. So what are we talking about? Mind you, this explanation doesn't even apply to American English speakers, because for American English, all collective nouns are to be treated as singular items in sentences. So this actually is what is driving me crazy. And I think that this is a case of when two elephants fight, the grass or the ground will suffer. Students are always on the receiving end of the confusion that comes with this analysis. Now, let's come back to. I'm still going to tell you what I think should be the right thing, anyways, but I just feel that this rule is not a rule, because a rule that cannot rule over a situation is not enough, cannot be justified to be a rule. So, look at this. If you say the army dash not a place for me, dash not a place for me. And then you have, that's number one, you have A, is, you have B, you have are. Let's look at this number two. The army, this can be small letter anyways, the army dash morning, the officer's death. The officer's death. That is the death, the officer. A, you have is. B, you have are. Okay. Now, let's look at these two examples. The first one says the army dash not a place for me. And number two, we have the army dash mourning the officer's death. Now, according to the Concord of fractions and percentages, would focus on collective noun. The rule simply says that when you have the collective noun, which is army in this case, when the collective noun is talking about the institution, is talking about a unit, a group together, functioning together. You're talking about a institution, then you have a singular verb. But when you want to consider the individual persons that make up the group, that make up the unit, then you have a plural. So let's go to the first question. The army dash not a place for me. The army dash not a place for me. When you say the army dash not a place for me, you're not talking about the persons. Of course, we have the word place here. It means you're talking about their institution. The institution for soldiers. The institution called army. Maybe the Nigerian army, the American army. Now, that institution is not a place for me. The focus is on the institution, right? So because the focus is on the institution, then we have this to be the right answer, which is correct. Now teachers are always very excited to use examples like this in the videos, in the tutorials, in the books, but they run away from other very crazy and critical examples, which is what I feel has to be spoken about, which is what I'm pointing out right now. So this is the army is not a place for me. The Nigerian police is not a place for me. The Nigerian police is not a place for me. Now let's come to number two. The army, still the same army, dash mourning the officer's death. There is an action here. There is no action here, even with is. You have to look at this. There is no action being performed here. The army is not a place for me. The Nigerian army is not a place for me. There is no action being performed here. Now here, the army dash mourning. Mourning is a verb in a continuous form. There's an action being performed. So who performs an action? Who performs an action? It's the people that make up the institution. So when the focus is on the people that make up the institution, then the answer, the verb will always be a plural verb. You understand what I'm trying to say? So the army dash mourning the officer's death. So that means the armies are mourning the officer's death. That's simple, right? But let's go to other intricate part of this rule that makes things even a little bit more confusing. Now look at this rule. Look at this example. One. The army, the army is small letter this time. The army dash come out to the bank. The news. First up, the army dash come out to the bank. The news. A. Let's say as. B. Let's have. Now remember, the certain English grammar textbooks or English language teachers will say that when a collective noun performs an action, then joint verb will be plural. When it performs an action, as in the case of the army, are mourning. The army are mourning the death of the officer. The army are mourning the death of their officer. If you apply that rule here, there's going to be a problem. There is going to be a problem. Okay, let's come down to this. The army dash come out to debunk the news. This question is talking about the performance of an action. The army dash come out to debunk the news. They are doing something. They are carrying out something. So this is talking about an action, right? And because it's talking about an action being performed by a collective noun, it means therefore that the verb should be plural. That's the explanation we have from certain sections of English grammarians, right? But if you apply that interpretation here, there'll be a little bit of problem. Let's look at it. The army dash come out to debunk the news. This sentence is talking about an institution. The institution of army, the institution known as this, is like you're saying, the team dash come out to debunk the news. The committee dash come out to debunk the news. Barcelona as a club dash come out to debunk the news. If you say Barcelona dash come out to debunk the news, you're talking about the institution known as Barcelona. So if Barcelona dashes out or dash out to debunk the news, we're not talking about the people in Barcelona, the team, the individuals that make up Barcelona coming out to debunk the news. We're talking about the institution coming out to debunk the news. So here, the focus is on the institution and not on the person that make up the institution. So that's why here we're talking about institution, even though an action is performed. The answer is going to be has. The army has come out to debunk the news. But today I tell you the truth. We have English teachers all over the place explaining that every time an action is performed by collective noun, then your answer will be plural. But that's crazy. It's insane. It's putting students in confusion all over the place. Because they are right. The rule says that. But where the rule is not ruling, is that it says that it all depends on the subjective interpretation of the person speaking. Right. Somebody here might say that, oh, it's the soldiers that are coming out to debunk the news. That shouldn't be the case. You know, when you have an institution, you have an institution such as clubs, such as the army, such as the police, you have institutions like that. Now, when the news comes out that is false and the institution comes out to debunk the news, it's usually not the people that make up the institution that come out to debunk the news, but the spokesperson of the institution comes out. The institution writes a press statement and then gives to their maybe the secretary or the PR to come out to renounce the news. So as the person speaks, as the spokesperson speaks, it's not the person speaking, it's not the people who are speaking, it's the institution that is putting out the information. So when the focus is on the institution, then you have a singular verb which is has, right? But when you have a focus, your focus is on the people that make up the institution, the restitutions in question that are acting, then you have the verb to be plural. But I think right now you understand where the confusion is stemming from. When you saw it, so I don't think it's right to say that, to explain the rule by saying that when a collective noun performs an action, you have a plural verb. And when it doesn't perform an action, you have a singular verb. It doesn't make sense, but that's what the rule says. We have to strike at the balance, and we cannot strike out at the balance by a single teacher, maybe like myself, coming out to say, oh, this is the right thing to say, when 1,000 other people, other teachers are elsewhere teaching something different. I don't know if you understand me. So that comes back to the first sample exercise, where I said half of the crowd dash moving away. We have a crowd. A crowd is a collective noun. And remember, when you have a collective noun, your verb can either be singular or plural, right? Depending on your focus. On your focus while using the collective noun. If your focus is to see the collective noun as an institution or as a unit, then you have a singular verb. But when you see the collective noun as you're looking at the collective noun as the individuals that make up the unit or the group or the institution. You're looking at the group, then you have a plural. So let's look at this again. Half of the crowd that's moving. You have a crowd of people, and half dash moving, the performing an action, crowd, after the crowd, dash moving, is the people that make up the crowd that are moving. So this is supposed to be, if you look at our interpretation, then it makes this R. But teachers are saying this is not R, it is it. So who is confusing who? I'm just confused. Who is confusing who? And let's come to this. Half of the crowd are wearing red. So what's the difference between this and this? There is no difference. No difference. Can't you people see? If you're saying this is it and this is R, look at half of the crowd. Dash moving away. Half of the crowd are wearing red. Are we crazy people? Can you see that? This subjectivity in the interpretation of this word is what I really can explain. And this is really messing up with my brain and with my mental health. I've told this, and I'm always afraid every time. I mean, talking about the pops now, every time I wanted to teach this topic to students, I was always afraid because I knew deep down in me that I was going to struggle because I knew myself. I was trying to place. I didn't come to the place of conviction, where I thought, yeah, I had full mastery of what to say on this. I didn't have the authority to give on this, on this concept, but I just had to stand before students and I successfully sold it to them. We cannot continue this way. We definitely cannot continue this way. Let's look at these other examples. So if you're an English expert, let's make in the comment and try this all out. So look at this. Let's say, look at this. The committee is meeting today. It's meeting today. This is correct. According to every English language teacher, it's correct. The committee is meeting today. The committee is meeting today. Now, the focus according to this explanation is that the focus is on the group, it's on the unit, right? And remember, when you consider a collective noun as a unit, the verb is always singular, right? Correct. Now, but also you should know that this question is also talking about an action. An action. The action of meeting. They are meeting. So, my goodness. Am I running mad? Come on, wake up, bro. No. So, excuse me, a committee is meeting today. I'm sure that every English language teacher will agree that this answer is correct. Yeah, that is correct because we have the subjective interpretation of us focusing on the bunch, on the unit, acting, right? But there's an action being performed. If we're saying that, if the focus is on the unit, and at the same time we're talking about action being performed or an action being performed, but that this interpretation will override the action being performed, then it means that the teachers or the authors, the grammarians who have been of the submission that when a collective now talks about action being performed, the verbs in the plural, I think those people have to go back now, including my own daily Ashade. And this is never in any way. This is not an attempt to disdain, to disrespect anybody. I love Daily Ashade. Is my mentor. I read him to pass my work in English language. I talked about him. I've always, himself and several other people whose name I don't want to mention, but I decided to mention the lecturer because he's who every English language teacher, knows actually. So I think this interpretation, the subjectivity that comes with the interpretation of this concept is what is crazy. So look at the committee again, the committee divided on the subject, So you have, let's say, A, R, you have B, you have is. Of course, I know by interpretation, whatever English language teacher will say is that we have this answer to be R. The committee are divided on the subject matter, the divider. Yes, why they tell you that? The focus in this case is on the individuals, the person who make up the committee, right? And when you focus on the individuals that make up the unit, then your answer is always plural. That is understandable, right? And you should remember, now if you look at this, there is no action being performed here. The only being divided, this is complementing what's here. The committee are divided, no action is performed. And the other part of the rule says that when an action is not performed, the verb should be singular. Can you see that now? There's a disparity, more like these explanations antagonize the other, they antagonize the other. So personally, I don't want to push further in this. I don't think that. Okay, maybe I should give one more example and then I call this a wrap. Okay, let's look at okay, half. Let's go to that of the same page. Half, or let's say 1/3. Let's say 2/3, 2/3 of that's fraction, 2/3 of the of my stuff, dash present. Option A are present, B is present. Number 2, 2/3 of my stuff dash wearing red. And then you have option R, you have B, You have is. Now for these two-thirds of my staff that's present, the answer by nearly every English language teacher is for number one. Two-thirds of my staff is present. And I don't think that should be the right answer based on the subjectivity of the rule. But of course, by the way, it's correct anyways. But because the rule has not been clearly stated to distinctively let students know that, okay, every time you see this, you put this answer. Every time you see this, you put this answer. And what I think that the association of English language teachers should come together and put out something, which I don't think there's an association of English teachers around the world to look at. Maybe there is, I'm not aware about. If there is, I think this is one of those crazy aspects of the English language that has to be talked about, that has to be sat on, and then a final solution wrap up. So the two-thirds of my staff are swearing. This is clear because here we're talking about the action of wearing, then this is, but the truth is there are still people who think that the answer is also is two-thirds of my staff. Two-thirds of my staff is, so man. So even with this, I think you're gonna understand now why I feel that my brain is being messed up with. So, as English language experts, you don't have to waste time now. Let's converge and comment and explain what you think works. And it's not just about this part, it's just about the concept of Concord when it concerns collective nouns in general. Okay, so how do you say the team is traveling today? The team is traveling today. The team is traveling today. It's the people that are traveling. So the people make up. When you say the team are traveling, it's not the institution that is traveling. It's the people that make up the institution that is traveling. So that should be are and not is. So, so thank you for hearing my public outcry, and for those who can help, please do well to help me in the comment. This is the only way I can get my mentor stable in the back. Get over this emotional, this mental breakdown. Thank you for watching. I can see you in the next video. Bye for now.